Welcome, everybody, to Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published, and it is now a course at NYU and an elective towards the journalism certificate. Every week, I speak with novelists, with authors, with writers of every niche to talk about their tips, their tricks, their strategies, and how the sauce is made, including creative advice. I'll talk about essays and articles and share my own experience from 3 decades of publishing. So join me every week and grow your business and build your craft with Freelance Writing Direct. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, and follow along on Substack, where I share special clips for subscribers only at estelleserasmus.substack.com. Hi, everybody. I want to tell you a little bit about my guest, Peter Shankman. The New York Times calls him a rock star who knows everything about social media and then some. He's a 6-time best-selling author, entrepreneur, and corporate keynote speaker, focusing on neurodiversity in the workplace, customer experience, and the new and emerging customer and neurodiverse economies. He's had 4 startup launches, including Help a Reporter Out, which he sold to a media company 14 years ago, and his newest, HARO, Help Every Reporter Out. And Peter currently runs several companies and is the futurist in residence at Price Benowitz and Blue Shark Digital. And he's had 6 books. He has a children's book that just came out that we're going to talk about. He's a worldwide influencer and our spokesperson for several global brands. And finally, he's a single dad, a 2-time Ironman triathlete, a Class B licensed skydiver, and has a pretty serious Peloton addiction. When he's not traveling around the world speaking to companies, big and small, he's based in New York City, where he was born and raised, with his 11-year-old daughter and 3-year-old rescue dog, both of whom consistently refuse him access to his couch. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, and I'm so happy to have Peter Shankman with us today. He has a long storied history, as you heard from his bio, and that's how I first learned about him back in the aughts when he created Help a Reporter Out. And now he has HARO. So why don't we start with HARO and then we can work backwards to HARO. And welcome to being on the program, Peter.
Good to be here. Thanks. So back in the day, I created Help Reporter Out, and it grew and it blew up very well. And it was acquired by a company called Vocus. Vocus became Cision, and Cision didn't have the same goals that I had for it. And I sold it, God, over 14 years ago now. So it really, I was always of the belief that you can't go home again. And I built it, and it was great. And then it changed, and it really wasn't the way it changed, really wasn't what I had liked. But again, it wasn't really my thing anymore, right? So when they told me, oh, you should really do something different. In the end of the day, I saw an opportunity and I said, okay, maybe there's something I could do a little differently here than what the company that bought the original version turned it into. I didn't want to compete with them or anything like that. I just said, maybe I see an opportunity here. Let's see what we can't do.
And so tell me, since you thought of picking up on that opportunity, and it was an opportunity, because I'm a member of the American Society of Journalists and Authors and have been since 1997. And okay. Help a Reporter Out was always the go-to resource. And I also included it in my book because HARO wasn't around at that point, or I would have included HARO. And so people were realizing that they weren't getting the kind of response that they used to be getting when HARO first started, which was much more professional, much more vetted. And they were just saying, where can we go now? Because HARO wasn't quite cutting it. And then I think it was the next week you announced HARO, which is really such synchronicity.
Well, that's kind of why I did it, because when HARO finally shut down or lost the emails, whatever, I sent an email out to my list saying, hey guys, it's time to move. raise a glass for what it was. And like 2,000 people responded, like, why don't you start again? I'm like, I don't want to. But, enough people said it. So I'm like, okay, I guess I got to do it.
And so how has the response been since that decision?
We're 20,000 members strong, 20,000 subscribers. We've had over 500 queries from the media. So it's definitely growing. My goal now is to build it more, to see more journalists, more sources use it. But again, I think unlike what it became in the last iteration, I'm going back to the basics. My thing with Help a Reporter was if you screwed up, you were gone. And so I've already banned probably about 15 sources and 3 journalists. Not really journalists per se, but rather people using it to try and sell their product or do whatever. But no, I'm of the opinion that this is making it real. And the goal is to have a place where sources and journalists can play nice and help each other. I'm not going to allow for people to come in and create negativity. Life's too short. I'm done with negativity.
I appreciate that so much. And it's interesting because you also have recently partnered with Muck Rack. Can you talk about that?
So Muck Rack is a wonderful service that has tons and tons of reporter databases on, basically lists what reporters cover, their contact information, all that. So for me, the goal is to create a sort of a way that journalists can showcase who they are and say, yes, I'm a real journalist. I'm a real working journalist. I'm not just trying to use HARO to get product to get free stuff or whatever, but I'm actually a journalist writing for an actual publication. So using Muck Rack's database, we'll be able to verify who these journalists are and what they're writing for, and also offer the sources a way to look up information on the journalists, i.e., there'll be a link that the source can click underneath the journalist's query that says, hey, here's what the journalist has been writing about. So, if you take any reporter and type in their name and you add the word Muck Rack to it and you throw it into Google, chances are there's going to come up with a bio on them. For instance, Estelle Erasmus is a journalist, columnist, author, and blogger who's a former magazine editor-in-chief and has written for over 200 online and print publications. She writes the All About the Pitch column for Writer's Digest, and she's writing a book for New World Library.
Well, that
She's
came
been
out.
in Writer's Digest, Apple Podcasts, New York Times, Yahoo Life, Business Insider, Forbes, HuffPost, Terra, The Independent, Washington Post, and more. Covers business, women's and mothers' issues, social media, health, social change. All this is free. All this is free and available to look at on Muck Rack. So if I can create a system where journalists can put in their Muck Rack URL in the query, it's going to sort of, in a way, verify them, right? Because if someone is writing for Joe's House of Blogs out of their parents' basement and they're just looking for free product, chances are they don't have a Muck Rack bio, right? So being able to put the Muck Rack bio in is going to verify who they are, and then they will become one of the top listings in the email that goes out. So for instance, if you submit a query to HARO today, you would be in the verified section as opposed to the non-verified section.
Now, what about the people answering? How did they get vetted?
My job was never to verify sources. The best I can do is, for lack of a better word, teach people how to pitch, right? I can help people pitch and say, hey, here's what the best practices are. Here's what guarantees a reporter will not email you. If sources pitch off topic, the reporter can email me directly and I will ban that source. And I've done it several times already. My goal is to create a system that works. And to do that, sometimes you have to be tough.
Yeah.
And so you either follow the rules or you're banned. It's that simple. And that goes for both sides. It has to work for both ways. Will there ever be a way to make it perfect? Absolutely not. But I think I can make it a lot better than what my last company wound up turning into once it was acquired.
Yeah. Do they officially sound the death knell on HARO, or was
I don't think they've officially sounded it, but I think if you want emails now, you have to pay for them.
Got it.
And that kind of defeats the purpose.
Absolutely. And so how does this tie in with all your other businesses? I mean, you're the host of Faster Than Normal, the internet's #1 podcast on ADHD, which you have, and you've written about it. You've written books and you've written a children's book. And you're the founder of the Shankman's Breakthrough Network, an elite online mastermind of thought leaders, business experts, and change makers, and the co-founder of Mental Capital, a global consultancy designed to help companies attract, hire, and retain neurodiverse employees. And clients include Morgan Stanley, Adobe, and Google. And so, wow, Peter, you're involved in a lot. How is this all fitting in?
One of the beauties of ADHD is that you can do a lot of things and they don't all need to be the same, right?
Yeah.
So I can create multiple different companies and they all seem to work and they're all different and they all have different whatever. So, for me, being able to create new things all the time, they don't need to connect to each other. They can all be different. They can all be fun. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And your goal also is to build this up to something really strong, really viable, as you have with your other projects. Do you have tips
Absolutely.
for, yeah, and you talked about like part of my podcast is really actionable tips for writers of every niche, freelance writers, people who learn from assigning editors, all that. So, what would some of your actionable tips be? A, for reporters who are going to pitch to be on Hero and ideally have a Muck Rack profile and an
Right.
updated one, and which I have to go in and update it, I guess. And the other thing is, how do you recommend if somebody is pitching to a writer to make sure they have the most, the best
I mean, the
chance?
best thing a source can do is research the reporter, find the information the reporter's working on, understand what they're doing, and go that way. Pitch them in language they understand, in ways that they can work. Give them the information they need. Your job is to help the reporter do their job better. That will get you the press that you want for yourself or your client every single time.
Okay, and as a reporter, be very, I guess, be specific about what you're looking for. Don't be
Absolutely.
vague.
Be specific, give extremely specific examples. I need a neuroscientist who understands how phenome genes work with HG1 cells. That is specific. Don't say I need a doctor.
Right. So some reporters might not want to give away the whole story, right? So then they could maybe take a segment, like you just said, and then say something that they would want in the interview that would help from the expertise of the other person. I think
Exactly.
that could work really well. I'm going to do a segue here. Your sixth book, a children's book, and your first children's book, it came out in mid-March 2023, The Boy with the Faster Brain. And it's a heartwarming story about a young boy named Peter who discovers that his ADHD brain, which was always getting him into trouble, is actually a super powerful tool that can help him achieve anything he wants. And I think that ties in with your brand, with the company that you created, with helping to show companies the benefits of ADHD employees and also showing kids. And what made you decide to do that? It appears that it's the children's version of your previous bestseller on ADHD, Faster Than Normal, Turbocharge Your Focus, Productivity, and Success with the Secrets of the ADHD Brain. And that was out from Random House in 2017.
My goal with the kids' book is to help children understand from a young age that they're not broken. When I was 5, 6, 7, all the way up through high school and college, I was told I was broken. I learned differently, and no one understood that. And so I had teachers who said, "Why don't you just go to the back of the room and try to sleep?" I had teachers who didn't understand how I worked. I had parents who were very supportive, fortunately, but I had teachers who just didn't get it. And so I spent 30 something years in therapy trying to undo that, trying to make myself understand that I'm not broken. And so if I can create a world where children start off at age 5 or 6 understanding they're gifted, not broken, they can spend the next 20 years creating the lives they want, as opposed to having to undo all the damage that was done to them.
That's amazing. And wow, what a gift for these kids. Wonderful. So, are you feeling that because you're doing all these things, that you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening with publishing today?
I don't know if I have my finger on the pulse. I would definitely say that I listen a lot. When you're ADHD, one of the benefits is that you do learn the ability to listen. And it's a lot of my success is because of that, because I've learned to listen and learned to find out if you let someone else talk. Over time, they'll tell you everything you ever need to know about them, and more so. So for me, it's really about letting someone else talk and listening to what they have to say and learning what I need.
So, what is your feeling about AI and how writers can navigate this? Because this is the thing that's blowing up the industry at this point.
So I'm not anti-AI. AI is getting better all the time. I'm actually a fan of it. However, I think that publishing houses, media houses, industries that think, oh, we can get rid of all of our writers and just use AI are going to be in for a rude awakening because it's not working like that. I can go right now and with 5 different sentences, I can train an AI app to generate some of the most foulest, most horrible, most illegal shit out there. I can teach an AI app to write a story about a 15-year-old boy in New York City who is a prodigy in his high school and is one of the smartest children or smartest students when it comes to science and STEM, and is really turning the world upside down. And I can have it bury in the 6th paragraph. And this, of course, all comes from the fact that he started believing in Nazism and killed both his parents when he was 7. And the problem is that if I do that, 99.9% of publishing houses are not going to read to paragraph 7, and that's going to wind up in print. So I think that if publishing houses or media outlets or whatever believe that AI is going to solve their problems and make them millions because they could fire all the writers, they are sorely mistaken. I've seen 2 lawyers get disbarred because in cases they cited other cases that AI gave them, except those cases never existed. So you have to be much, much smarter than just to think, oh, I'll let AI do it. The fact of the matter is, I can tell when you've pitched me via AI versus when you've pitched me via a real article. I can also tell when an article has been written by AI. I can also tell when your entire Threads account or Instagram account or Twitter account is designed by AI and run by AI because it's a farming house. It's not real. There are subtle, subtle signs. Everything from photos. Go look at any AI generated photo and look at the photo. Something looks quote unquote wrong. And we're not there yet. Now, are we going to get there? At some point we are, but by then it's a while. We're nowhere near ready for that yet. And I think that the journalists that are smart will understand that AI has a place and they can use it to their advantage, but not to write the article. Being ADHD, one of the biggest problems I have is procrastination. And so I can ask AI to write the first paragraph of something I have to do. Just getting that first paragraph written is usually more than enough for me to start, because now it's not as big of a deal anymore. Now it's been started. Now I can write it, and I'll go back and rewrite the first paragraph, but everything has been done in that first paragraph for me, allowing me to get past the procrastination stage of staring this thing in the face and going, oh my God, it's so big, I have nothing else to write. So that to me is really the goal. If I can build that and create that system where I can use AI, but to my advantage, where I'm not generating random garbage, I'm not writing, I'm not having it do my work for me, but it's helping just to get me started. That to me right there is a benefit of AI. And the nice thing about that is that we are going to get smarter as humans, and we're going to know immediately, wow, that person's using AI to generate all their work. I don't want to hire them. So it's just a question of being smarter. It always is.
And so today, journalists are struggling because I started in the 90s. I think the top was $1 a word, and maybe it's gone up a bit more for some of the print, the really big print like Vanity Fair. But in general, $1 a word, 50 cents a word, but you're getting much less for digital. And it seems to be going down, and publications are closing at an alarming rate. What do you think journalists need to do, or writers, to position themselves besides write books? But even book buying is, a whole different fraught area.
Journalists need to understand that we are a society that has a incredibly short attention span. The best way to counter a short attention span is to become brilliant at the basics. Make sure that you're writing for the audience you're writing for. Make sure that the people reading you're interacting with them the way they want to be interacted with. I still get probably 100 pitches a week from PR firms. And my favorite is the one I got about 3 years ago, right around this time, 3 years ago, Mother's Day, that said, "Dear Peter, we know that working moms like you have it tough." The benefit of something like that is that if the bar is that freaking low, I don't need you to be amazing. I need you to just suck slightly less than everyone else.
Yeah. Wow.
So you don't have to be incredible. I equate it to waiting online at the airport for your flight. You have to go through the TSA process, which is normally a nightmare and a half. If you get through the TSA and it goes quickly and you get to the plane, you have the seat you wanted and you take off on time and you land on time, in your mind, that's the best flight ever. When in actuality, that's simply just called a flight. Expected was to get an anal probe from the TSA and then wait 3 hours for your delayed flight. And then you lose your seat. You're sitting in the back next to the bathroom. But if you take off on time and land on time and don't crash into a mountain, you're over the moon.
You're
So if the bar
happy.
is that low, that's all I need you to do. Just be slightly better.
Well, that's a soundbite. The one before too. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to share? I know you didn't ask me anything recently, and you plan to do some more of those, and I'll include in the show notes that information.
I would suggest that, again, it goes back to what I said. We live in an era that, whether it's on the world stage, politically, emotionally, from big business, we expect to be screwed over. The best thing you can do to improve your life, to improve other people's lives, is just be a little nicer and be a little smarter. It takes so little to rise above the pack. It really does. I try to teach my daughter that. I'm like, be 1% better than everything else and you will win all of the things.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. It was really a pleasure to speak to you. I love following your journey, and I can't wait to see what's going to continue on with HARO. I have a feeling we're going to hear announcements upcoming as you go along and build this wonderful engine that we need.
That is my goal. That is the goal. But thank you so much. It was great to be here.
Follow me at EstelleSErasmus.com on my website and on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Estelle S. Erasmus. And we're now on YouTube for Freelance Writing Direct. Follow along, and soon everyone will be reading what you're writing.